Alright, so we just finished that big heist mission where we stole the laser, and we ran into a rival Shadowrun crew, and I let them take it, because our primary goal was just to take the laser from the company. And they didn't, even the contract said like, we don't really care who gets it, I guess. Anyway, let's check in at the Mahjong parlor, because apparently there's urgent news from our benefactor, which we haven't seen in a surprisingly long time, to be honest. I thought she'd be someone I had to talk to during every mission, which I kind of have to, with the whole briefing thing. Alright, immediately concerned that Strangler Bao seems to have a gun pulled. And some of these characters... I guess the ghoul always looks like he's in combat mode, though. We'll see what... hopefully it's for something good, and they're not mad at me for the 2 runs that I've kind of fucked up so far. As you walk through the Mahjong parlor, you see your crew waiting for you, clearly uncomfortable to be so close to the triad boss. Then you see why. Kaini Cheng's cheeks are flushed and glowing. She's already hit the bottle pretty hard. Question is she mad at me, or is there just a development in the story that she's perturbed about? Nice to see you all. Should we grab a table for some Maj? Shut up, handyman. I have important news. Kaini Cheng takes out her PDA and gently places it on the table in front of her. The wiretap we placed on the police force has borne fruit. Her mouth breaks into a wolfish grin. Her eyes take on a feral gleam. She appears fueled by alcohol and vengeance, a hungry beast of the hunt. My people have delivered a snippet of a recorded video call between the plastic-faced man and Chief Inspector Crate of the Special Duties Unit. Whoa. This should be good. Should we take a seat? Unfortunately, it's only a snippet. There were some technical difficulties with the tap. She glances at Bao, who nods back at her. The person responsible has been sacked. Cheng reaches out a lacquered fingernail, hunts for the button she's looking for, and stabs it in victory. There's a loud crackling noise at the beginning of the recording, followed by a squelching squeal that makes Goblet cover her ears in pain. When the video recording begins, the man's voice sounds far away, as if he's talking through a thick pane of glass. The woman is louder, closer. Say that again. There's something wrong with the line. I said my client isn't interested in hearing more excuses, Inspector. Well, there's the plastic-faced man. That's what I thought you said. I'm not making excuses, mister. I have a department to run. Not for much longer. If those 2 Westerners aren't found, they're linked to this Raymond Black somehow, and my client wants them out of circulation immediately. The 2 runners are his accomplices too, the little orc and the dwarf with the cyberdeck. Goblet looks at Isabelle wide-eyed and swallows hard. Isabelle winks back reassuringly. I'm aware, Inspector. Thank you. We don't know how much any of them know, and my client is adamant that the risk be mitigated immediately. I've already made this the SDU's highest priority. If Josephine wants more resources on it, I'm going to need allocations from elsewhere in the department. That is a problem that can be easily dealt with. My client wants this over. Now. No more excuses, no more fuck-ups. No more cops floating in the river. Kaini Cheng smiles at that and pours herself a shot. Tell her we're doubling the efforts. Very good. Dead or alive, you bring them to me. My client requires my personal verification that the threat has been eliminated. Hang on. This line is getting worse. There's a sharp crackle and the recording ends. Kaini Cheng picks up her PDA and put it away with a smile. She unscrews the cap of her bottle and pours herself a shot with a flourish. I wonder if the process of tapping the line is why they were losing their signal. That's the guy we saw in the surveillance footage. The one who killed Raymond Black. She leans in on the PDA. That plastic face looks a lot cooler close up. I think it's kind of pretty. The video doesn't tell us much. I mean, we already knew that there's APB on us. All we're sure of now is that the man in the plastic face is definitely looking for someone else. This Josephine. Is that all we have, Auntie? A first name? It's not just a first name, Goblet dear. It's the first name. Josephine Sang. She's the one pulling the strings. Kindly drowns her shot and slams the glass upside down on her table. That disease-riddled dog fucker. I should have known it was her from the beginning. She drums her fingers on the table in front of her. And she has the nerve to call down the heat on my runners. On Nightjar. Oh, the Scrabbus fossil's going to pay. I don't recognize the name. Cheng makes a wet, hacking noise in the back of her throat and spits it on the floor. She's the CEO of Sang Mechanical Services and a member of the Hong Kong Executive Council. Her face turns to a mask of disgust. Josephine Dog fucking Sang. CEO, huh? What do you know about her? She was Hong Kong Philanthropist of the Year in 2054 and 2055. Children's hospitals, homeless shelters, food distribution centers. Good causes. They kind of get good PR because people are too lazy and myopic to look up for the real people doing the hard work. The face-to-face with the poor work. Don't be so cynical, Isabelle. Auntie Cheng smiles at her sweetly. Coming face-to-face with the unsanitized for video poor is distasteful, dear. You know that. Her face gets stony. Beyond being a CEO and a philanthropist, I also know that Josephine Sang is a lying, conniving bitch. Philanthropist and bitch. Those two things sound mutually exclusive. She snorts derisively. Wake up, handyman. Power is power. Whether you're providing children with 3 hots and a cot, or you're negotiating a treaty with multinational, it's all the same. It doesn't sound like you like her very much. Whatever gave you that impression, my sweet? Her wolfish smile returns. No, my darling, I don't like Josephine Sang, and I'm going to fuck her up. I'm going to fuck her up bad. Oh, this should be good. It will be delicious. And I may explain why someday, but not today. She picks up her bottle of swill, its turpentine fumes drift your way. But I finally get her. But when I finally get her, you'll be there, my darling. I'll make it a party. What do you think of the connection is between Josephine Sang and this plastic-faced man? I don't know yet, but I will. He called her his client. That may be some sort of lead we can follow. Cheng nods at Wu. Her glance lingers at his bicep a moment before continuing. Right now, all we know is that he is her instrument. The one who killed Raymond Black. Raymond's not dead. Yes, you have mentioned that before, Gun Show. She smiles at him, reprovingly. Regardless, Plastic-Faced Man is still our best lead for figuring out what's going on here. What is Sang Mechanical Services? Josephine's baby. It was a B-rated corporation before she married into the Sang family, but after she fought for and won the contract to rebuild Kowloon Walled City, their fortunes rose high. They began to rise to power that eventually landed Josephine in the Executive Council. Walled City. The Walled City. Yeah. The same place Raymond Black hired my runners to take him. I've already connected the dots. I don't know what it means, but it clearly means something. Remind me who the Executive Council is again. May I, Auntie? Isabelle breaks in, giving Kylie Cheng a chance to calm down a bit. Hong Kong is run by a consortium of powerful corporations called the Board of Governors, who set up the Executive Council, an 8-member committee of exemplary Hong Kong citizens to represent the people and run the city on their behalf. But of course, you don't vote for them. That would be too unpredictable. Instead, every 2 years, 2 Executive Council slots come up for election, and the corporations on the Board of Governors put up some possible candidates and vote among them in a closed-door session. Closed door? I'm shocked. Of course, every single one of these candidates is on some corporation's payroll somehow. Wham, bam, instant government. Let's go to the chase. What's our next step? There's nothing we can do to touch Josephine Sang, as much as I hate to admit it. But the plastic-faced man has a different story. He's a third-party operative who's been careless, and he'll live to regret it. Her little black eyes turn stony. For a while. If Sang thinks she can take out 2 of my runners and get away with it, I'm gonna have to explain things to her. She puts out a thick black cigar and runs it beneath her nose. Oh, she pulls out a thin black cigar. We're going to find the plastic man, and we're going to hurt him. We'll hurt him until we know everything he does, and then we will use that to strike back Josephine Sang. She lights the cigar and takes a deep, deep pull. You will have your satisfaction, and I will have my own satisfaction. She turns away and picks up the bottle. Now get out. I have work to do. Well, we have progress on Plastic-Faced Man to some extent. Although, I don't know if that's going to be immediately lead to a mission or if it's built up for future one. Preferably, I would prefer to go do... What's that? Sailor. Oh, just a sailor. I would prefer to do another side quest first if I can, because there's definitely a lot of them built up. But first, let's try to collect our payment. Your workstation computer, cool. Oh, yeah, that's all the stuff it always says. Inbox, old messages, jobs directory. Claim payment for the prototype run. You submit the job is finished and await the response. A few moments later, a message pops up onto the screen. From Steel Arm Lou. Your payment is attached. I confess that I am very pleased with your work. It's not every runner who could have pulled a job off of this magnitude. Well done. Cool. Not even a slight reprimand at all for not having the weapon. So that worked out just fine. Except for the part where I could have sold the weapon or used it. I don't know if it counts as a weapon a character can use or not. But even if it doesn't count, I probably could have sold it for money. But anyway, how much money do I have now? Oh, 2,000. Nice. I'll have to look into what I can get from Spider Shen. Well, let's take a rest. A stabbing pain in your stomach jolts you awake. Your entire abdomen is cramping up. You roll in your cot, willing the shooting pains that radiate from your stomach to go away. Your mouth is bone dry and your tongue is swollen. It feels thick and inarticulate, like a useless slab of meat. A quick glance at your PDA tells you that it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Outside of your cabin, the rest of Haoi sleeps. All that you remember of the dream that you woke from is a horrible, unfulfilled yearning, a need to get where you were going fast. Others were behind you. You could feel the heat of their breath on your neck. If you were to beat them to your destination, you could slam all the doors in their faces, keep them out and away from what was yours. But if they overtook you, you would feel that terrible longing forever. As you grasp at your last fleeting memories of the dream, a wave of exhaustion washes over you. It feels like you've been drugged. You collapse back into your cot and into a black, dreamless sleep. When you open your eyes again, the sun filters in under your door. It's morning. Is there really a spot for the sun to filter in? Maybe there's a window over here I can't see from inside that I could see if I went outside the boat. It's all possible. This seems a little odd. So let's check in our friend downstairs, since apparently it's very important I talk to Ractor and I've made a horrible mistake. Welcome back, my friend. What can I do for you? Koshé is an interesting name for a drone. Yes, I suppose that it is. Not many riggers would name their most prized possession after a villain from a fairy tale. Not to my heritage, I suppose. What's the fairy tale about? Have I read this one already? Wait a minute. Oh no, I'm mixed up. I'm confused because Gaichu will also has like folklore to tell me, so I was like, why are we talking about this again? Oh wait. A thoroughly unpleasant person, Koshé the Deathless he was called, and for good reason. His soul was cleverly hidden outside of his body, and he could not be killed so long as it remained intact. Koshé was a villain, a notorious kidnapper of women, but something about him always stuck with me. I suppose that it was the notion of immortality through cleverness that resonated. I've read this before. Yeah, I've read this before. Let's just get ahead. Okay. Weird. So some pieces of dialogue I've definitely already covered as just showing up again. Yeah, I talked about his accent before. I probably talked about the morning casting, machinery. Yeah, you used to work for a core. It's almost like the thing glitched or something. Let's see. Seems like everybody on this boat runs the shadows. Why not pool our resources and work together? He purses his lips, considering a compelling offer. I'm doing quite well on my own, but I must admit that there are certain jobs for which I am unsuited. Magic eludes me, and I'm not a decker. My strength comes from material objects in the real world. Solid things with mass and heft. Things that I can build and operate. Sadly, a great many clients are only interested in teams that display a mastery over the intangible. This group of yours, do you have people that can cover the bases? If so, then perhaps we can help each other out. Alright, sorry audience, but I think Racter broke in my playthrough. I think I somehow broke this character. Last time I talked to him, he wouldn't even admit to being a Shadowrunner, and now I'm just like, oh yeah, let's team up. Let's team up, Shadowrunner. It's almost like you ask the question that's the second question in a series of questions, but you ask it first, and then you make them accidentally admit to something. Like he didn't even say he was a. I think his entire dialogue broke. I think I just got access to all of his dialogue, including ones I've already seen before and ones that I don't have access to. Let's see. So she just wants to know that I have a good team already? Let's see. Yes, I have a shaman and a decker, both competent at their jobs. In that case, I accept your offer on a provisional basis. We'll do a few runs together and see how we get on. If our association bears fruit, it will continue. If not, I will bid you farewell and go back to working alone. How's that sound? Welcome aboard. Very good. Excellent. When you receive a job, you will know where to find me. My skills and resources are at your disposal. And with that, I'm afraid I will bid you a good day. I still have work to do down here. The slag assembly won't clean itself. I'll be in touch. Looking forward to working with you. And I with you. Can I talk to him again? Or is he going to kick me out? Raptor's shop is sweltering hot. Even more so than it was the first time he stepped inside. The whir of actuators accompanies the fine motion of the manipulator arms that hang from the ceiling. They are turning the object over and over in their articulated hands, soldering wires and hammering rivets. Ah, my friend, welcome back. Racter types a series of commands into his bracer, and the arms relax into an idle position. He smiles at you, a cigarette dangling from his lip. There, that's better. Now what can I do for you? Any thoughts on the last run? I wasn't present for your last run, so I have no thoughts on it. I did, however, make an exciting breakthrough on some actuator design work that I've been tinkering with. Now, what else would you have with me? Not much to go on there. How are you getting along with other members of the team? Perfectly well, thank you. They all seem competent enough, and there haven't been any major personality conflicts so far. He rubs his chin thoughtfully. So long as they continue performing to an acceptable standard, I can see no reason not to continue our arrangement. It's good to run with the team again. Except you haven't yet, but, you know, the writing doesn't account for that, I guess. Let's see. Sure, alright. But what do you think of them personally? They're all fine, I suppose. All fine. Goblet is quite charming, Isabelle keeps to herself, and Duncan is doing his best in a bad situation. Gaichu is quite intriguing. I'm very pleased that the team is willing to overlook his unfortunate condition. Many in the shadows wouldn't be. There's a momentary pause. He shrugs. And that, I'm afraid, is all I'm willing to say. All I have to say. Apologies if you were looking for more. You're still something of a mystery to the group, Racter. Mind if I ask a few questions? No, I don't mind at all. He takes a drag of his cigarette, then slowly releases the smoke. I can't promise that my answers will satisfy your curiosity, of course, but you are certainly able to ask. What was it like growing up in the Russian Republic? Tumultuous, as you might expect. You probably aren't old enough to remember the Euro Wars, but I am. I'd like to hear about them. My country was the instigator in the first Euro War back in '30. I remember the rhetoric, the hardships of living under a wartime economy, the rampant xenophobia that took hold. I remember how we all cheered when our forces invaded Poland. 3 months. That was all it that was all it took for our military to crush what meager resistance the Poles could bring to bear. It was quite the source of national pride at home. I remember our drive to Germany, the desperate bid to reclaim the eastern portion of that country to ourselves. Just think about the symbolic significance of such an act. An audacious move, to be sure, but Security Kropotkin was determined to make history. So what happened? Did the German military stop you? No, the Night Wraith incident did. Wait, there were ghosts there? He chuckles to himself. No, my friend. The British Aerospace Night Wraith is a fighter bomber with stealth capabilities. These were the machines that rained fire on our troops, or were purported to have at any rate. Nobody has ever come forward to accept responsibility for the attack. Regardless of who was behind it, the result of it was the same. Wave upon wave of bombings that targeted our forces and the Germans alike. Coupled with the assassinations of dozens of military leaders, a devastating synchronized operation expertly carried out over the course of a single night. At home, viral attacks shut down our power grids. Hundreds of thousands of Russian homes found themselves without heat or electricity in the dead of winter. Koshé scuttles forward, allowing the rigger to rest his hand on the sloping metal of its chassis. Racter stares at his own deformed reflection in the metal of the drone's body, a sad smile on his face. I remember huddling under a mountain of cheap blankets that my mother had piled up on the bed. They did little to protect me from the cold, but they were still something that I could hang on to, something tangible I could associate with warmth and comfort and home. There, as my body trembled, I watched my breath frost over. A horrible truth descended upon me. We had caused this. We were the villains of the First Euro War. For the first time, I came face to face with what Kropotkin's folly had brought us, and there, under that ridiculous heap of rags, I came to realize what surely would come to pass. The world thought us villains, and so they would treat us like villains. We would be pariahs on the international stage, crippled by retributive sanctions. We would never live down the shame. He wipes his hands as if cleaning them, a wry smile spread across his face. And then the AFA invaded Greece and Spain, sparking off Euro War II. We redeployed our troops and to help repel them, and all was made right again. That easy, huh? Oh, about. We were still regarded with suspicion, of course, but Europe might have fallen if it hadn't been for our help. In essence, we took back our reputation at gunpoint. Not an ideal solution, but it worked. With the span of 4 months, we Russians had gone from nobodies, a terrible threat, to unlikely saviors in the eyes of the Western world. Studying exactly how this happened has taught me a great deal about human psychology and social dynamics. Human psychology? You say that as if you aren't one. He laughs. Just a figure of speech, my friend, nothing more. Now, shall we talk about something else? Surely there are more interesting and relevant things to discuss. You mentioned that after the Euro War was sparked off by the AFA. You mentioned that the second Euro War was sparked off by the AFA. Who were they? He takes a drag of his cigarette. Ah, yes, I supposed that you wouldn't know. They were only active for the years surrounding the conflict, after all. The AFA is the Alliance for Allah, serving under Mullah Sayyid Yazrir, a coalition of right-wing Middle Eastern governments that assembled under the failure, some say sabotage, of the United Islamic Conference. They looked for a weakened Europe and saw an opportunity, one that my country was entirely responsible for creating. So they launched a surprise attack. Yes, but in hindsight, we should have foreseen it. Ultimately, the AFA did what any hawkish power would have done in their position. I cannot fault them for taking advantage of Europe's weakened state, given their circumstances. They would have been foolish not to. Well, I take it you beat them. I mean, I haven't heard of the AFA before, so things can't have ended well for them. No, my friend, they did not win. The AFA folded in 1937 after Yazir's assassination. A lucky thing for us, too. The body count could have been a great deal higher. In the years that they were active, the AFA gave us a hell of a fight. Did you emigrate directly from Russia to Hong Kong? No. Between my years in Nizhny Novgorod, damn it, and my time here in Haley, I spent a year in the Free City of Berlin. That was where I got my feet wet as a Shadowrunner, you see. I ran with a team of anarchists for a time and learned the ropes of the occupation under their tutelage. Anarchists, huh? Must have been interesting. He shrugs. It was, to a point. They were disorganized, to be sure, but perfectly capable. We enjoyed a certain level of camaraderie while we ran together. Sadly, we are no longer on the best of terms. What happened? An opportunity arose and I seized it. In so doing, I left Berlin for Hong Kong, and I did so without much advance notice. My absence made life difficult for them, and they blamed me for their hardships. Huh, you did what you had to. Yes, that's right. While my departure may have caused complications for my former teammates, it wasn't personal. I haven't lost any sleep over my decision. In my position, any of them would have done the same. He looks away, a wistful expression on his face. Koshé scrapes the ground with its forelegs, a sensor fixed firmly on you. Ultimately, I would say that my time in Berlin was quite educational, different from my earlier life in Russia, to be sure. As I said, the experience was invaluable. Ultimately, though, Haoi is probably better suited for my sensibilities. So Ractor's interesting then, because that means that he doesn't necessarily have any sense of camaraderie when it comes to Shadowrunner crews. Basically, he'll work with you, and he'll work for the profit, and it'll be a mutually beneficial relationship, and at any moment he might just decide, I'm gonna go do this now. How so? Life in Hong Kong is more structured than it is in Berlin. Things make sense here in a way that the Flux state didn't. He taps a finger to his temple. I have an orderly mind, everything in its place. Neatly labeled and filed away, this approach is what allows me to make sense of the world. To say that the people I knew in Berlin thought differently would be an understatement. Why did you move from Russia to Berlin? He holds his tongue for a moment, considering. When we first met, I told you that I parted ways with Grishin Aviakor under unfortunate circumstances, yes? Something like that, sure. These same circumstances led me to Berlin. I was wronged, and I could not find recourse in Russia. He sighs. I suppose that there's no sense in being vague. I'll tell you the story if you want to hear it. Please, lay it on me. You may remember the self-repair system I mentioned the first time we met. The module that would allow Koshé, or any sufficiently equipped drone, to repair itself. I told you that my research had been lost. That was not strictly true. It was stolen by a pair of colleagues who I had long considered friends. They were researchers from my old lab. They turned against me, stole our work, in truth, my work, and defected. Research from the old lab. So if that one commenter was right about that mission I just did being this guy's companion quest, I wouldn't be sure of it. I wouldn't be surprised if those two people, the doctors that I broke into the labs of, are his co-workers. They betrayed you, huh? Yes. Driven by desperation, no doubt, and ambition. They had always been fixated on getting out of Russia. Grishin Aviakor was a nationalized corporation, and they would never get rich as cogs in a government-controlled machine. In our project, they saw their key to breaking away and earning their fortunes. Never mind the fact that I was opposed to the idea, and so they took what was mine and left me nothing. And so you followed them, I take it? Yes. The two had long spoken about moving to Berlin. Since such was true of a great many academics in Russia, my homeland is a bureaucratic dictatorship, you see. There is little personal freedom, and there are many rules to be followed. As you might imagine, the stable anarchy of the Flux state can be an alluring concept to those who live under totalitarian rule. Berlin is much romanticized back home. So you assume that your former colleagues had run to Berlin? It was the only thing that I had to go on. At best, I would find them. At worst, it could be a good place to rebuild my life, and of course, to re-establish my web of contacts that I'd need to track down those betrayers down. There is a squeal of tortured metal as Koshé drags its claws over the iron grating that covers the floor. Ractor glances down at the drone and goes calm. He takes a deep breath and continues. It took me over a year to locate my former friends. It was a long, painstaking search, but I was nothing if not determined. I finally found evidence that they'd used my research as a bargaining chip to secure positions at Ares, and they were here in Hong Kong. And so you came here to Haoi. He nods. I picked up and left the next day. My old team was upset, to be sure. Lucky Strike in particular howled for my blood, but I know where my priorities lie, and so here I am. And here they are, and soon I will be ready to act. Whoopsie. I really must thank you for inviting me to the team. Your abilities will be invaluable when the time finally comes to make my move. Assuming, of course, you'd be willing to help? Something tells me you weren't surprised when I invited you onto the team. You were waiting for this, weren't you? I thought that it might go over better if you believed it was your idea. And it would seem that I was right. I am on the team after all. The idea that he intentionally held off on... Like he wanted to join the team from the get-go, but he used a delaying tactic to try to make it my idea. The funny side effect of that is that he may have missed out on his opportunity to do the mission he came to China for, because he did this. Oh, you silly man, you really may have screwed yourself here, unless I'm gonna go back to Ares. Yes, you are, and you're right. I, for one, would be happy to help you. When you're ready, just say the word. Thank you, my friend, but this is a discussion for another day. We aren't ready to hit the Ares facility yet, and there is more intelligence to gather before we make our move anyway. When the time comes, I will let you know. What can you tell me about the colleagues who stole your work? Today, they call themselves Taylor and Hardingham. Yep, there goes all ambiguity. He speaks through clenched teeth. Koshé drags a claw across the ground, and you can hear the squeal of metal on metal. Those aren't their real names, obviously. They shed their former identities when they left their old lives behind. And these two are in Hong... What were they called before they worked back... What were they called when you worked with them back in Grishnavayakor? It doesn't matter. Those men are dead to me, as they are to the world. My old colleagues no longer exist. Taylor and Hardingham are all that remain. They are targets now. Nothing more. He idly brushes Koshé's armored chassis with the fingertips of his right hand. Oh, how wonderful it will be to find them. What a reunion we will have. Makes me just want to keep saying any thoughts on the last run? You know, the one where we went to Taylor and Hardingham's place? Nothing to say about that, huh? The stolen research means more to you than money, doesn't it? He nods his head. Yes, much more. It's my life's hard work. And it was important. Reducing it to a bargaining chip was a deadly insult, both to me and to all those who would benefit from my work. You say that with an almost religious fervor. He snorts. Religious? No. Religious superstition is a relic of the past. I welcome the future. A future that my research was intended to help usher in. Tell me about this future that you predict. Tell me, are you familiar with the concept of transhumanism? The transformation of humanity as a species by technological means. Oh, they want self-healing robots so that you can make human... He probably wants to make robot people that can live forever through continually repairing themselves. Just like that children's story about the never-ending villain, never-dying villain. And I'm not an academic, so I can't say that part. Sure. If I'm not mistaken, we're already living in a transhumanist present. Yes, that's right. Transhumanism is no longer a philosophy, it is a fact. Look around you. Cybernetics are an important aspect of everyday life. Further, I would argue that the synthesis of a man and machine is a crowning achievement of meta-humanity as is possible. Cyber technology is an impressive technological feat, but our crowning achievement? No. He raises an eyebrow. And what would you suggest would be more important, more impactful to our species than the science of cyber technology? Art, music, literature, things that make life worth living. He shrugs. Those are all fine things, I suppose. I wouldn't downplay the importance of any of them, but our cyber technology has fundamentally altered our people, indeed our species, on a philosophical level. Can you name me a novel, or a painting, or a piece of music that can claim the same? I didn't really like either of those options I could choose from, philosophy or art and stuff like that, but I was thinking more of like, because my character is focuses on spiritual powers and probably won't have cybernetic implants, or at least not any significant amount of them, I was going to go for more in that direction, but that wasn't an option. By exerting our will over the composition of our own bodies, we have conquered the mindless trial and error of biological evolution. For the first time in history, there is a god, and he is us. Okay, got it. We're living in a transhuman world. So where are you going with this? In such a future, the capacity for unlimited self-repair would be indistinguishable from mortality. You can see then why the theft of my research came as such a blow. My former colleagues hadn't just stolen from me, they'd taken my contribution to the future of our species and reduced it to a bargaining chip. Yeah, I'd get it. I'd be upset too. I was more than upset, my friend. I was livid. I still am. And all will be made right in the fullness of time. I am nothing if not a patient man. I can wait. He rises, brushing himself off. And with that, I'm afraid I'm going to have to bid you good night. I've taken enough of a break for one evening. There is still work to be done, and it would be lax of me to put it aside any longer. Thanks, Racter. It was interesting. He nods at you. Good night. Alright, Racter. I'm sure you've had a grand old time. You do you, I guess. Let's check in on let's look into missions first of all. Definitely have a new thing to pick up. Inbox. 700 messages. Artifact liberation, geomantic sabotage, about those dreams video. Goblet's face winks into the screen. Her rats are perched precariously on her head, and she holds a laser pointer clutched between her thumb and forefinger. Oh, hey, Seattle. Hope I didn't catch you at a bad time. She flicks the laser pointer, and her rat's head swivel to the right and follow the motion. Why did I just say that? This is a recording. Doesn't matter if it's a bad time. Well, anyway. I was thinking about that talk we had, you know? The dream talk about the nightmares and stuff. Another flicker on the pointer. The rat's head turns left. Their nose is twitching. I got a friend here in town. She runs a Parlor of Five Faces. It's sorts of a local magic shop and talismonger. Name's Crafty. Flick. Rat's head turns upward to stare at the ceiling. Anyway, she's smart. Really smart. Her mom was some sort of a local authority on all the things magical, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If you wanted to ask anyone in town about these dreams, she'd be the right one to choose. She taps a button on the laser pointer with her thumb, and the little red dot on the tip goes dark. The rats immediately tackle one another, rolling off her head and falling out of sight. She gets up, her head rising out of frame. Anyway, just thought it might help. If you've already been talking to Crafty, please disregard this message. Alright, I'm out. Peace. She punches a button and the screen goes dark. Oh. We should probably look into talking to Crafty then. Also, let's maybe do a check-in with Wu, since we haven't talked to him in a couple missions. Hey, Duncan. Good to see you. Wu smiles. Now leave me alone. I got stuff to think about. What'd you think about the last run? That was some real cloak and dagger shit, wasn't it? Hitting a high-tech weapons facility lab, framing a triad for the run. Dealing with other Shadowrunner teams. He shakes his head, smiling. Oh, and to top it all off, there was a laser gun there. A laser gun. If I didn't know it any better, I'd think you enjoyed yourself. Hey, look, as a rule, I don't like running the shadows. Given my choice, I'd walk straight and narrow. But I'm gonna be criminal. This is the kind I want to be. The kind with a laser gun. So I gotta admit, I was a little sad when you gave the thing to the other team. I mean, I get why you did it. Reputation's important and all that. But the weapon is an asset, too. He shrugs. I don't know. It was a tough call. Let's hope that you made the right decision. Anyway, enough about that. Anything else? You thinking about getting chromed up? With cyber? He shakes his head. Oh my god, how many times are you gonna ask me that? Let's see. Oh, a couple dozen more times. You always have the best reactions. Wu grins, his teeth blindingly white. I told you, one time I was thinking about it when I was 13. Let it go. I'm not gonna pollute my body with that shit. You? Yeah, obviously I'm an adept. Wu, look at me. I've got magic in my hands. Of course I won't get cybered. Yeah, I guess you got a point there. That's a good thing, by the way. Better keep yourself whole and in touch with the world around you. I may not have magic, but I know that's true. I want to talk to you about you and me. His eyes rest on you a moment, his face neutral. Yeah, I guess. I guess now is as good time as any. You start. Seems like Carter's death hit you pretty hard. Wu continues stretching. Yeah, she was a good one. We were a real team. Joining Lone Star helped me in all sorts of important ways, no doubt about it. I really embraced being a cop. I studied my ass off, but no matter how hard I worked, I was never more than a model cop with a brutal streak. There was plenty of assignments that were perfect for a big mean orc like me, assignments that would have fed my need to hurt people. But I met Carter about a year in and she changed things. We talked about values and goals and priorities and constructing the life you want to live. She was a real trip. Sounds like a good woman. She was a cop, a partner, a mentor, and a serious badass when she needed to be, but yeah, she was a good person too. She kept me focused. When Raymond asked me to meet him in Hong Kong, I had a feeling I was going to wind up going off the reservation if I didn't bring Carter along, and now she's gone, and here I am. That's brutal. He brought her along just to try to help himself, basically, and then she's the one that died. You only took a step off the reservation. You can choose to step back, too. You sound like her now. With Carter, there was always a choice to be made, a positive action that you could take. Wu folds his arms across his chest and nods to himself, satisfied. You're not acting like the Duncan Wu I grew up with. What made you decide to become a cop? I needed structure. Bad. You know that better than anyone. I was already hardcore when I met Mr. Ultraviolence. I'd do anything to get a rise out of the guys. Oh, I was already hardcore when we met. Mr. Ultraviolence. I'd do anything to get a rise out of the guys I was rolling with. Gouging eyes, inverting knees, curb stomping. That kind of shit got me cheers. I was like a pit fighter, bloodletting for the crowd, and I learned to enjoy it. But I never learned how to block out the memories of their screams when I was lying in bed at night. The guilt started to eat me alive. And then I was scared to be alone with my thoughts, so I tried to drown them out with all the things you can drown things out with. You never told me that before. You seemed to have it under control when we were together. It's funny how people remember things. Yeah, when we squad together, and later when we were living with Ray, I was still a violent son of a bitch, but basically under control. But that was you, handyman. You were the voice of reason, the brains. Me, the brains. Don't pretend you weren't the leader. You know how it was. When we ran the streets together, I was the muscle and you were called the shots. You pointed it and I hit. But later, after Ray got me counseling, I realized that I let you call the shots so that I wouldn't have to, because I knew that what I wanted was wrong. By following your lead, I was deflecting my own guilt onto you. I could just knock heads and walk away clean. You know, don't look at me, I was just doing what I was told. So this is what Duncan does. He doesn't believe in his own self-control, so he submits to me to make all the commands. And when I was gone, he went with Carter, and then now that Carter's gone, he's back with me, because he needs someone to tell him what to do, because he doesn't trust himself. And then you left. Without you here, I knew that I was in serious trouble, the poster boy for anger management issues. Raymond could provide a stable environment, a decent therapist, and money for prescriptions, but you know Raymond, he's an egghead engineer with a philanthropic streak. Not a drill sergeant. And a drill sergeant was what I needed. I needed structure and discipline in a way that he couldn't offer me. I needed a cage to keep myself in line. So I found myself a cage made of rules, and procedures and training. Lone Star. Raymond helped me with my application and provided a decent character reference. I got in, and I helped a lot. It helped a lot. Lone Star got me where I needed to be, and now it's all gone, and you're back. You've been waiting a long time to ask me about the night I left, haven't you? Wu chuckles, and hooks his thumbs in his belt. I guess I have, yeah. It's about what you were doing before you got thrown into the core facility. You said that you had a friend who was in a bind, but that was all you could say. How'd it go? Let's just say we're not friends anymore, and leave it at that. Whatever you say, Grotto. Do you ever think about when we were kids? He begins moving through some sort of pattern. Might be Tai Chi. I try not to. What are you talking about exactly? The old gang, Lockjaw, Double Tray, those guys. You realize that the old gang we're talking about were teenagers, right? Younger than Goblet, man. They felt so old back then, but Lockjaw couldn't have been more than 17, tops. And Double Tray? Double Tray was only 13 when... Wu stopped moving. Drifts off for a moment. Why were you thinking of them? Just thinking about the thing that DT used to say. Wu returns to his patterns. He manipulates an imaginary soap bubble between his hands. Improvise. Adapt. Overcome. That's how you beat the street. I remember Double Tray saying that. It was while we were living between the red-hot nukes and the 162s, crazy-ass dwarf anarchists on one side of the flesh-eating ghouls on the other. Those the days you long for? It was me and you, Duncan. Those other guys were important, but it was always about you and me. His raspy baritone fills the space between you, bridges it. Survive and watch each other's backs. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I know. Let's talk later. Of course, they describe what voices sound like, but then they let you imagine what voices sound like before. They give you time to deal with each character's voice for a while, and then they're like, now I'm going to describe what his voice sounds like. It's like, that's not what I had in my head already, damn it. Yeah, later would be good, don't get me wrong. Catching up is nice, and I'm not used to being as social as this. That's one of the reasons why it's so nice to work under Carter. We both appreciated long silences. Sorry, man. You seem like good people. It's all good. She's gone, and I've accepted that. I guess it's just been a big day is all. Anyway, good talk. I'll catch up with you later. Alright, lots of follow-up there, then. At the very least, I should probably talk to people about the last mission. Since that's unique dialogue, you probably lose the moment you leave anyway. As you step into Isabelle's cabin, she turns to face you. The desk that she's been working on is a mess. Food wrappers and computer expansion cards lie in a heap. Isabelle herself doesn't look much better. Her eyes are badly bloodshot, and her lips may have drawn in a deep frown. You're back. Hey. She shoves a box of assorted mounting screws aside with her foot. What do you need? Any thoughts on the last run? I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Mostly because with Ares, the alternative is leaving in a body bag. Especially when you're stealing a prototype laser. Good pay for a good night's work. And that's what this business is about. If you can walk away and get paid, it's been a good job. I kinda wish we'd kept the laser, because hey, it's a laser, that's awesome. But you did the decent thing, really. You helped those runners out, let them keep their rep, and both of us could get paid. There's a good quality in a team leader. And I'm glad I've got you running the show. Anything you want to know? How are you holding up? Not great. I'll manage. Is there anything that I can do? I seriously doubt it. Appreciate the offer, though. When I unlocked these old memories, I told you that they were crystal clear, right? Every detail was perfect. It's still that way. I think it might always be. Why? Because they've been stored as data in archival format. They're never going to fade. They'll never grow less intense with time. It's like having an eidetic memory. I'm stuck with the perfect record of every shitty thing that I saw and felt during my childhood and living in hell. It's not an easy thing to live with. Why not just lock the memories away when you're not using them? You have the key. Just unlock them again when we need them. No. It doesn't work like that. I can't just lock and unlock whenever I please. There's a period of adjustment after I unlock them. I have to unpack the memories, reconcile them with everything else going on in my head. It's disorienting. Painful. If I lock these memories away again, it's gonna be for the last time. Until then, I'm just gonna have to live with them. So if you've got questions about the walled city, go ahead and ask them. I should be able to give you answers. Not all the answers, mind you, but something. Now that you've unlocked your memories, I have a question about the walled city. She runs the tip of her tongue over her lips and nods. A look of fierce determination seizes her. Go on. Ask the question. I'm ready. How did you get out of there when you were a kid? How did you escape? She heaves a sigh. Goblet led me out. Really? She must have been what? 9 years old? Something like that? Go ahead and ask her about it if you want. I'm sure that she'll be happy to brag about it, but I think that we'll have more pressing matters to discuss. That's all for now. Can we talk about something else? Please. To be honest, almost anything else would be more preferable. I gotta go, Isabelle. Good. So I've had enough for one day. I'm tired. Reliving this stuff is exhausting. Come back later if you want. I'll have more time to unpack the stuff by then. But until then, please give me some space. That was actually not really anything substantial. Okay, I'm unbearing terrible, horrible pain, and I'm finally unlocked my memories. Ask me anything. How'd you get out? Oh, Goblet let me out. The end. Alright, well that was the whole conversation. The weight is a little lost. Oh right, new party member. So this gotta be this is my rigger. He's my droid user. Riggers versus deckers. All right, so top option is his two tiers are Predator and Mangler. The Predator one. Oh, all his drone gets 5% accuracy boost all the time. Not bad. And Mangler, his drone +1 movement speed. Okay, so it can move 7 tiles per AP instead of less. The accuracy seems pretty handy though. I think I do like the accuracy because that could be such a deal breaker. On this other side, there's it's Predator versus Mangler. This one is so the other ones are called accuracy and movement speed. These ones are called shotgun mount and rotary saw. Shotgun mount. Raptor's drone gains an auto shotgun attachment, which does an additional 2 damage at the cost of -5 accuracy. Funny how that works out. Can hit adjacent targets at ranges of 6 or greater. Uses 10 ammo. Mangler. Raptor's drone Koche gains a mounted saw blade arm. In the melee systems, the attack's critical is greatly boosted. Cooldown of 2. Huh. I think I'm gonna go with the shotgun mount. I've already not chosen the one that makes him move faster. Moving faster and having a melee attack seem like they have good. It seems like those two skills would fit well together. So I think going with the shotgun and increased accuracy is actually a better result here for the path I'm going down anyway. All right. That's that character leveled. Goblet, any feedback? Goblet looks up from a dented tin of oysters at the sound of your approach. Her rats, Madness and Folly, scurry from her hips up to her shoulders. 2 sets of beady red eyes fix themselves to you. Hey, Seattle, oyster. She spears a gray lump of seafood with a fingernail, extends it to you. It smells like a low tide at a municipal pier. Sure, why not? You pop the rubbery wad of flesh into your mouth and chew. An explosion of lukewarm brine is your reward. Good, right? Half repressed memories of dumpster diving and the Barrens dance a merry jig in your brain as the mangled oyster slides down your throat. Yeah, delicious. I wouldn't go that far. But it's seafood. And it isn't made of soy, so it makes it good in my book. She tilts back the tin, drains the remaining juice, and then flicks it into the overflowing bin at her side. So, what do you need? Let's see, I can do a bunch of stuff about the bolt hole. Let's ask about Isabelle. Actually, last run. Any thoughts on the last run? I think that went pretty well. There aren't a lot of runners who can say they went up against Ares and came out ahead. Sure, maybe the job could have gone a little smoother, but how were we supposed to know? How are we supposed to account for another runner team showing up? Adaptability, Seattle. That's what makes a good runner. Always go with your instincts. I think you made the right call. Giving those guys a laser. I mean, sure, who doesn't like lasers? But there's another. Would another gun really make that much of a difference for us? The team sound like the kind of people that won't forget a debt. Something that sometimes that's the difference between living and dying. Who you can call for in a pinch. So, what else you want to chat about? So basically everyone has this virtually identical feedback about the last mission, unfortunately. I've got a question about Isabelle. Yeah, what do you want to know? She told me that you let her out of the walled city when you were kids. Care to fill me in the details? Yeah? I guess I'm not surprised, as you've never been big on padding the story with unnecessary detail. Want to tell me your side of the story? Seems like I've got a vested interest in the walled city these days. Yeah, sure, why not? I'll share. She taps her chin thoughtfully. To start, I guess that you're gonna need to know what the walled city was like. You're gonna need to know what the walled city was like and when me and Iz were kids. She didn't tell you anything about that, did she? No, she didn't say much other than that you saved her. Didn't think so. The research. She reaches down, absentmindedly strokes Madness's silky coat. The rat chirps happily at her caress. Well, for starters, you should probably know that the walled city wasn't always as bad as it is now. It was always dangerous about 10 years ago. But 10 years ago it was just a run-of-the-mill slum. Still safe enough that walking in it didn't qualify as a suicide attempt. Keep going. Back then, I used to play in the walled city. Rat would lead me up to all the nooks and crannies, and the grown-ups were too big to fit through. There were the other young shamans in there that I used to play with. His name was Happy, or Lucky, or something like that. He followed Pig, nice guy, good card player. Apparently Rat is very old. So shaman totems definitely live longer than the natural lifespan of the animal that they are. Obviously, none of this was a good idea. Teenage girl going around in the walled city by herself, that's a recipe for disaster. I didn't realize any of that at the time, though. I loved playing cards in the alleys and crawl spaces of the walled city. It was fun. Is that how you met Isabelle? By exploring the walled city as a kid? Yeah. Inside the wall, there were these districts, you know, ones earlier that... The one we were in earlier when Sheng sent you after Strangler Bow, the Lotus Den. Yeah, I remember. Well, Isabelle and her family lived in the Mansion District. It was sort of holding pen for refugees in the Middle East and Africa. Basically anyone who isn't Asian, European, or goblinoid. It's less pleasant than it sounds. No goblinoids. There weren't any orcs or trolls in Isabelle's district? No. People like me and Duncan get their own districts in the walled city, regardless of their country of origin. Nice cushy places in the other outer perimeter of the wall. There are advantages to being big and strong, especially when everyone around you is too malnourished to fight back. Of course, the residents of the goblinoid districts didn't all share a metatype or two. They've got something in common, a set of shared experience to tie them together. Not so in the Mansion District. The only things that these people had in common was their skin color and the fact that they were living in crushed poverty. There wasn't even a common language for them to speak. It was a pretty rough place, lots of infighting, lots of gang-on-gang violence. People did band together for protection, but there wasn't a lot of hope. Everyone lived in fear of being sent deeper into the slum, toward the center. And when you start getting dragged in that direction, you don't come back. Reminds me of life in the Barrens. Yeah, I imagine the two were pretty equivalent back then, but when the walled city got really bad... Oh, before the walled city got really bad. Anyway, this is where I met Isabelle, and it wasn't long before we were friends. She was interesting. I think that's why I let her latch onto me. The girl was smart and savvy, but cripplingly shy. She didn't belong in the walled city. No one really does, but with her it was painfully obvious. She was like a little mouse crammed in a box full of weasels. And it was only a matter of time before somebody snapped her up. So what happened? What led you to take her out of the walled city? Rat happened. She came to me in a dream, showed me that whatever was going bad in the walled city was getting worse. The whole place was rotten from the inside out, choking in bad key and lost hope. I decided to go inside one more time. If I found Isabelle, I'd offer to lead her out. If I didn't, well... She grimaces, spreads her arms. You'd have left her there. Look, it was her home. It wasn't mine, and I wasn't going back there again, period. I decided to go just once, and against my better judgment, to see if I could maybe take Isabelle out of there. And that was gonna be it. I wasn't gonna die to save her. I guess that's fair. You're damn right it is. More than fair. I risked my life to get her out. Anyway, I did bump into her, and she did follow me. And Rat got us both out safe. She offers you a weak smile. So there. Happy endings all around. What about Isabelle's family? She said that they were in the walled city. Why didn't you bring them out with you? You think I didn't want to? She sweeps a loose strand of hair out of her eyes. Look, it was going to be dangerous enough to get Isabelle out on her own. Dragging a whole family out there would have been impossible. Why? Because they weren't like me and Iz. They hadn't grown up on the streets. They were upper-class people in Somalia before they immigrated to Hong Kong. They were hopelessly out of their element. Even if I managed to find them, they probably would have done something stupid and gotten us killed. You probably made the right choice. Damn right I did. Even if I'd managed to convince them to come with us, they would have gotten caught. The Yellow Lotus would have kidnapped them if they were lucky. If they were unlucky, the Thrill Gangs or the Organ Leggers would have gotten them. It wasn't worth the risk to even try. She sniffs. Besides which, Isabelle didn't want to bring her family. She wanted to get away from them as much as she did from the walled city. Never could get her to tell me why. Oh shit. As we unlock more of Isabelle's memories, we're probably gonna go down a real dark tunnel there if she's being abused by her family. What about the other people that stayed behind? The other shaman you knew? They went bad. Crazy. That pig shaman that I knew wound up going full-on toxic. It was horrifying. He burned himself out in an orgy of blood. She shudders. Nasty business. And not for me. Toxic. What does that mean? When a shaman goes toxic, he goes bad. It's like when you invert the usual meaning of a totem. That's what a toxic shaman does. Dog shamans are loyal and friendly, like all good dogs are. A toxic dog shaman is a rabid. They're both dog, they're just different aspects of dog. Get it? Yeah. And your pig shaman friend went toxic? That's what I heard. You don't want to know what happened to him. What it became, it was pretty bad in the end before the locals overwhelmed him. A lot of people died. That's all. Can we talk about something else? Sure, ask away. I'm all ears. Let's see. I'm doing the value proposition of how much I want to keep going with. Let's do a Shadowrunner one. Yeah, at this point we're probably going to start the next mission next episode. This game's certainly verbose. You said you'd teach me how to be a better Shadowrunner. I'm here to collect. Still remember that, do you, huh? I'm just sort of assumed you'd laugh it off. No dice, wizened mentor. You offered, now pay up. She straightens. Okay, how about this? I'll tell you a story about a run gone bad. You tell me what you would have done in the runner's place, and then we'll compare notes on your answer. How's that sound? Works for me, I guess. She sweeps a tangled rope of hair out of her eyes and back over one pointed ear. After a moment of silent contemplation, she bites her lip and nods. Okay. So this is a story from early in my career. I was part of a team here in HK, but I did some occasional moonlighting for another group based out of Macau. I was a busy kid. Earlier in your career, so you were like 12 years old? Her eyes narrow in mock indignation. You say that like I couldn't have been. When I was 12, I could have destroyed you. Also, I was 16, practically an adult in orc years. We grow fast. Anyway, the job was a hit in the tower, sort of a Triad multiplex stash apartment complex. I'm sure that they've got them in Seattle too. You know the kind. 7 huge screens, monster concession stand, coffin apartments on top of the barnacles and a whale. I used to go to one back in Seattle. Best way to watch Urban Brawl. She nods. Good, you know what I'm talking about then. Our client wanted us to break into one of the apartments. Story was that it was next to hers, a guy named Boggs lived there. She'd been cooped up with him until about a week prior, then things went sour in a big way. She wanted to get back at some things that Boggs kept when he kicked her out. Scare the hell out of him, bloody him up a bit, make it look like a robbery, you know the drill. So it was a standard smash and grab then. Yeah. It was a pretty bush league gig, but the pay was decent enough. Sort of thing you'd not turn down. So anyway, siblings, that was our group leader. We had a plan. We knew that if we go in quiet because the Metroplex had a panic system wired directly into the HKPF, if we got on shooting, we'd be drowned in cops within 10 minutes. Sib thought he could take a big advantage of the apartment's terrible soundproofing and kick in Boggs' door when the movie got loud. We'd camp out near the doorway, wait for the ceiling to start raining plaster, then smash our way in with the neighbors none of the wiser. We can say it sounds familiar for an academic, which I am not. Doesn't sound like a bad plan. Well, it had the virtue of being simple, I'll give it that, but still, that didn't stop things from going, the way they did. So we waited in the hall, just like siblings planned. We had a guy in the elevator, another at the stairs, and I was waiting by the floor's communal kitchen. Sib took up a position by the door. She had these two cyber legs that just dumped a ton of Nuyen into, hydraulic jacks, strength enhancement, the works. The girl could probably leg press a dump truck. She pauses a moment, come to think of it. Most of her plans involve kicking things. There's something a little sad about that. Hey, if that was her thing, I wouldn't question it. Yeah, you're very supportive. Me, I'd have preferred to work for someone who thought about it with her head instead of her robot legs. Anyway, we heard a boom from downstairs, felt the wall shake for the reverb. Sib wheeled back and gave the door a massive kick, just as we planned. It's kind of a funny little dig there. It's kind of making fun of players who build a character that has a certain build, and then like, now every plan will evolve around the one thing that my character does. From where I was standing, I couldn't really see what happened next. I could hear a massive crack as her boot slammed into Duraplast. The door flew off its hinges. Exploded off might be a more accurate phrase. A second later, we heard an ungodly crash. There was a moment of silence, then Sib let out this little gasp. The apartment was in shambles. It looked like a hurricane had hit it. Everything was trashed, everything but the door, which was miraculously still in one piece. Remember that this was a coffin apartment. It wasn't much wider than the door was to begin with, and Boggs, well, what was left of him under the door, too. Oh. So it was a tiny apartment, so when they kicked in the door, they killed the person that they were there for. Wow. Well, you got to the rough 'em up part, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, he wound up a lot rougher than he was supposed to be. Her nose crinkles in discomfort. That door really did a number on him. Rigs sticking out of his skin, that kind of thing. It was a bloody mess. So yeah, Boggs was dead. The stuff that we'd been sent to the apartment to recover had been smashed to bits, and the building alarm went off. So that's the situation. Our payday is smashed. My temporary teammates are still standing around the stupid looks on their face. Cops are coming, and I'm standing by the kitchen. She plants her hands on her hips, smiling. What would you have done in my place? I could say your group was in trouble. I'd have rallied with them, tried to help them fight their way past the cops and out. Or say siblings created the situation. You weren't even part of her team. You were subcontracting. I'd cut and run. Damage control. I'd have. Wow. I don't think I've seen the word "I'd have" spelled out like that before. Never realized it would have two apostrophes. I'd have looked for blackmail material to protect myself from the soon-to-be angry client. Or I'd have tried to improvise. Was there anything in the kitchen that I could use to resolve the situation? Straight up killed the guy. Just kicked down the door. Oops, the person's dead and everything's destroyed. This went bad, about as fast as it can. Let's see. Blackmailing the angry client is interesting, but them being angry might not have that bad of a consequence necessarily, and you still have to escape the situation. You might have to improvise. I don't know. I'd have tried to improvise. Was there anything in the kitchen that could be used to resolve the situation? Good thinking. As it happens, there was. and I knew just what to do with it. The thought popped into my head, and I just went with it. She taps her temple with a smile. That's a lesson to remember, Seattle. The first answer that you come up with is almost always the best one you're gonna have, so just roll with it. Don't second-guess yourself. Don't hesitate. Just act. You'll live longer that way. Got it. Now, when I think crowded theater, I think place where you can't shout fire, because it'll cause a panic. And then I thought, cops don't charge into burning buildings. They help people get out of them. And as it happened, I had the means to create a real, genuine fire sitting right across from me. A pair of industrial ovens. She's gonna light the place on fire so that she can act like she's escaping a fire and that they're not a criminal. That's creative. You might kill people. Yeah, sure. Makes sense to me, I guess. Right? It was clearly the best available option. I opened the gas vents wide, set the range on a timer, and motored back to the hallway. The others had started arguing amongst themselves. I told them to snap out of it and follow me down the alley. Into the lobby. We have to clear the hallways before an errant spark takes the whole floor out, I said. Sounded pretty reasonable to me. Unfortunately, the rest of the group wouldn't listen. Sib and the rest of them were too busy arguing about the relative merits of her let's kick things really hard and see what happens tactical system. And I wanted it to want anything to do with me. I shouted back to them that the kitchen was going to explode and continued down the hallway. Just like I'd planned. I got out of that run in one piece, so did every single one of the people in the multiplex. My plan worked perfectly. If the rest of the team had listened to me, they might have gotten out of the building too. Kind of a bummer they didn't, but at least the run turned out well for me. So your team burdened to death. She crosses her arms and opens her chest. Look, they screwed themselves over when Sib kicked that door. They were in a heap of trouble, and what I did could have gotten them out of it if they'd listened to me. Know how I know? Because it got me out. They could have followed me, but instead they chose to argue until they exploded. That's on them, not me. To be fair, yeah, they sound like really incredibly stupid people. Oop. I reflexively accidentally double-clipped. Oh well. Goblet claps her hands together and rubs them, a satisfied look on her face. So, Seattle? It sounds like I didn't actually miss that much, actually. The laughter disappears from her voice, and her expression goes serious. It's like somebody flipped a switch. Suddenly, the look on her eyes shrewd, calculating. Tell me, what was the moral of this story? What lesson was I trying to convey? Don't go shadowrunning with idiots? Ah, funny guy. She frowns. While that is a lesson, maybe even a valuable one, it isn't the one I was trying to convey. Now pay attention, because this is important. I'm about to give you a speech about improvising and going with your gut. What I was trying to teach you is that you should trust your impulses. When a run has gone south and you need to improvise, don't overthink it. He scratches Folly behind the ears. Once you commit to doing something, you gotta follow through with it though. No arguing or hand-wringling, just do it. Yeah. You do just need to follow through and not hesitate. Hesitation's what made something bad happen in my Until Dawn series. If you get caught in your own head, agonizing over past mistakes, well, don't be surprised if you wind up dead. A kitchen knife can take you down as easily as a cop's bullet if you stand around and let it. Whoopsie. So are you certain that the siblings and the rest of the Macau team are dead? She shrugs. They weren't with me when I got evacuated with the rest of the moviegoers. I never saw them leave the building, and I haven't heard from them since. I bet you these people are going to come up later as some kind of revenge thing. And this whole little training thing's actually set up for what's going to be ultimately her companion quest. I guess it's possible somebody made it, but I don't really run into those circles anymore. Odds are good that if anyone from the Macau team did survive, they'd have died off by now from sheer incompetence. Shadowrunning's an unforgiving business. You don't get to make too many mistakes. So did any of that stuff in the story actually happen, or you just make it up for my benefit? Seattle, I'm hurt. It all went down exactly like I said it did. She pauses. Well, except for a couple of embellishments here and there. They did make a better story. Artistic license and all that. Goblet leans back and stifles a yawn. Madness and Folly dart up to her left shoulder and lock their beady eyes on you. Hate to break it to you, kiddo, but I'm beat. It's been a long day. Lesson's over for now. We'll pick it up next time. Alright, Goblet. Goblet, I'll catch you next time. Yeah, sounds good. I'll have your next lesson ready and waiting, too. She makes a brushing motion off with her fingers. Scurry along now. Your Menta needs a rest. Alright. That actually went into a pretty interesting direction. We've had a lot of nice little... We've had a lot of storytelling here, actually. We got a story about Ractor's escape from Russia and his hunt of the people that we've kind of already fucked with. We had some background with Wu. We found out how Isabelle and Goblet left the walled city, and we heard about a past run that Goblet did where she apparently burned her entire squad to death, which is brutal. I guess this has turned into another one of those episodes where I just hang out around town and talk to everybody. I guess I'm just gonna have to get used to the idea of that happening. I always try to, in all my other RPG shows, I try to have shows where episodes where, like, if I'm gonna talk to people around town, I also mix it in with, like, we're gonna go do a quest. But I think the pace of this game is so slow that that's just not gonna be a thing that happens, which is not a problem. It's just makes me feel weird about the pacing of episodes a little bit. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching like always. I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go pick up a contract at the beginning of the next episode, I think, and we're gonna start another run.